King of Kings. King.
It's time for the Wrestling Observer Extra.
One more time for old time's sake.
With Dave Meltzer, right here on The Law. Live audio wrestling.
And let's go. We're now smoking with the best.
Welcome back. It's The Law, second hour here. Of course, our interview with Eric Young still to come. Good chunk of that to play, the Q&A, and Tight About Trivia coming up in the next segment. Don't call yet. Call during the commercial, because I have to answer the phones this week and get you on the air. But right now, the gentleman we have on the phone, as we do each and every week at this time, is Dave Meltzer, the editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Happy holidays, Dave.
Thank you very much. Happy holidays.
Well, the thing is with holidays, we don't really have them because wrestling and MMA really does not stop. And this week there's been announcements all week long, and we were just talking about the announcement of Michael Bisping versus Anderson Silva going on to Fight Pass. And the ramifications of this. So we wanted to get your thoughts on it. Do you see this as a new mandate for UFC pushing towards Fight Pass fights?
Well, yeah. When they hired Eric Winter to run Fight Pass, which was a couple of months ago, I saw it as something where they're really trying to ramp it up. And the one thing that I noticed on the show this coming Saturday, the Dustin Poirier versus Joe Duffy fight, which to me was one of the strongest fights on that show, was moved to Fight Pass as opposed to normally it would probably be on the pay-per-view. And I've noticed that they're trying to do more and more of that. I expect we'll be getting, ramping it up, more, again, like that London show is stronger than most. I mean, that main event on the London show was stronger than most television main events and stronger than some pay-per-view main events. And that's a new thing for Fight Pass. So, yeah, I expect that it's we'll be getting more Fight Pass exclusive shows this year, and stronger main events on those shows. And definitely, like when it comes to the pay-per-view, I could see where the third or fourth biggest match on every pay-per-view will be a Fight Pass match.
Dave, what do you think the reaction is if you are a Fox executive where you understand that the big fights go on pay-per-view, but Fight Pass up until this point has very much been somewhat of that third tier? If you're Fox, obviously you want this fight. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, this is bigger than most Fox fights and bigger than, and especially FS1 fights. So, it's a balancing act by UFC, without a doubt, because Fox wants more bigger fights. Pay-per-view needs bigger fights or it can't survive, and they want to grow Fight Pass. So, it's an interesting game.
In regards to this actual fight, Dave, it's an interesting scenario because this is the first time Anderson Silva is going to fall underneath the new drug testing, and Bisping is one of the most outspoken fighters against drug testing.
Drug testing.
Yeah, sorry, for drug testing against drugs. Who do you favor in this fight with both of the, Anderson Silva getting older and Bisping having the eye damage, etc.? Who do you favor here?
I got to go with Silva just because of the career difference. But Bisping's going to be 37. So but he's in great shape. The one thing Bisping is, he's in great shape at 37. But Silva is just an incredible fighter. Now he's not the fighter that he once was, and he's had a year off. And then there's this situation with So it's a lot of question marks. I've got to favor Silva though. I just feel higher skilled level of fighter, and they're both going to be, to an extent, falling off. I think Bisping will actually be falling off less than Silva, but I think that Silva's got so much more to fall that it's still enough to beat Bisping.
Would you say, Dave, this is kind of the high end of what you can expect on a Fight Pass? Like, I can't see them going much above this because, as you mentioned, this is a fight that would do better than some title fights on pay-per-view.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine that we get a bigger fight than this on Fight Pass all year. It shocked me when I saw the lineup. I mean, I knew the directive, but especially the other thing about making this match is it's on the show in London. That London show sold out for Bisping against Musashi, and then they pulled Musashi. They didn't pull Musashi. Musashi's going to fight Talis Ladies. They just announced that today. But the thing is, they already had sold the building out, and they strengthened the card, which is also a rarity. Usually, when you've already got the building sold out, you're not going to change the card, unless it's an injury and you have to change it. I mean, when you've got both guys there and it's already sold out, let alone change it to something bigger, and especially because I figured that Silva was going to headline the pay-per-view in March. So now we don't know who the March pay-per-view main event's going to be.
Well, speaking of fights that this might be bigger than, next Saturday, UFC has a pay-per-view that not many people are talking about, and it's Robbie Lawler versus Carlos Condit for the welterweight title. It was an interesting move to put Condit into this fight. Lawler's on a tear. How do you see this fight doing pay-per-view-wise, Dave?
I don't see it as a big one, especially because, we're coming off of those two monster shows, and the last show was a deep show. This one, when you really look at it from a marquee standpoint, it's not a strong marquee show. Now, from an action standpoint, it's actually a pretty good show. Especially, Poirier and Duffy that I talked about is to me, that's a great fight. Lorenz Larkin and Taisumov, I believe. Tumanov.
Yeah, Tumanov.
That's a really good fight. But it's not. Yeah, it's not like the last one where it was like 7-8 deep. This one, I don't expect it to be a big one. January 2nd is usually a good day. So that's a plus, but we'll see.
You have to. I would have to imagine if Andrei Arlovski beats Miocic on this card, he's got to get a title shot.
I think whoever wins that fight's getting the next title shot because there's nobody else.
Right.
So Santos, I guess you could possibly go with Overeem. You could go with Overeem
if he's signed.
Yeah. I think that if Miocic wins, people are going to say, well, he just beat Hunt and he beat. He's off a lot of big wins, and you can almost say that he went even with Dos Santos. That you could say that. I think that, whoever wins, I expect to get the next shot. Overeem this dark horse, but I was actually surprised that Arlovski didn't get the shot and Velasquez did. But with an Arlovski win, yeah, I think so.
Let's flip on over to Raw on Monday night. They've sold out the Barclays Center. John Cena is back. Vince McMahon is back. When was the decision made on John Cena, Dave? Was this kind of always the target they had, or was this any kind of a reaction to the Monday night game?
Cena, this date for Cena's first Raw was known, like months ago, literally. Now, Vince McMahon, I've got to think that was made when the rating came out this week, because there was nothing on the show Monday that led you to believe that they were bringing Vince back as a character, and there was nothing said or anything until a couple days ago where it was even hinted. So I think that was probably when they were doing the script. It's like, oh my God, we're going against a football game. It's whatever it is, or maybe we got to heat up Roman Reigns. Who can heat up Roman Reigns? Well, Vince McMahon, and I'm sure that USA, when they saw the rating the week Vince was in, probably pressure them as well of like, we need, Vince, you need to come back. I really don't think Vince wants to come back, but I think that he's doing it.
I find it funny that they're going double barrel tomorrow when in just a week's time they've got SmackDown to pop a rating on as well, and one of these two guys could easily do that.
Well, it shows how much of a priority Raw is, because you're right. They could have put Vince's return. They could have started the advertisement for Vince's return to SmackDown. They could also announce Vince McMahon for SmackDown. I would expect that.
The law of diminishing returns.
Yeah, it's not as strong. And I don't know of any big names that are returning for SmackDown.
Hunter's the only one out there that we haven't seen.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't watch the network.
I would think that his return, I would think his return's going to be tomorrow. Maybe they'll hold it off with Vince. They'll hold it off for another week.
That would actually make sense now that you mentioned that Hunter does come back on SmackDown, and that's the first time we see them if you don't watch NXT or aren't online. Many weird things. Speaking of returns, Monday night we saw Santino Marella. We also saw him on SmackDown. We've talked to him recently. He was always planning a comeback. It looks like he's back full time, I'm guessing, Dave. But do you know if he's in ring shape?
I don't know. I got the impression that that he wasn't going to be wrestling again. So I don't know how much they could do with him. Obviously, it's a comedic character to be in from time to time. I can see that. It's just tough. It's tough to write him in. But yeah. I just thought that he was in for like the week, but we'll see.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. It's not anything that. Yeah.
Let's chat, Dave, as well. We had the soft launch, I guess, this week of TNA on Pop. I believe 111,000 viewers tuning in to watch it. Was there any kind of reaction, positive or negative, to this number? Was this viewed as anything that they took with any kind of stake attached to it?
It's not a positive number, but it doesn't really mean any. Put it this way. if you're at Pop TV and you were against it, it probably strengthened your feeling against it. But really, until January 5th, nothing's going to really, everything changes January 5th anyway. But it was not. I can't look at it as a positive when they were talking about 1.3 million viewers. Now, granted, they weren't. No one in the world was expecting to be anything close to that now, nor ever. I don't think anyone could rationally believe that you'll ever be even close to that. But still, 111,000 when your lead-in is 211,000, it's not particularly good.
What's your game plan, Dave, if you're TNA? I mean, with this environment for them, house shows, I mean, they do have the UK dates coming up, but beyond that, I mean, what is 2016 if you're TNA and what you can reasonably accomplish this year?
I don't know. I just see them just trying to survive and hope a miracle happens, because I don't like, again, this is not anything, the financial situation. I mean, they were barely making it, and they were getting paid by Destination America. This is a completely different deal where they're not really making any money off of it, and I don't see them being able to be strong enough for house shows. I mean, the last time that they planned house shows, they canceled most of them. Last year, what did they end up with? About 6 house shows all year? I don't see, I'm sure they're going to say it's going to change, but they need some excitement there. I don't know where that's going to come from. They're still going to be taping months in advance, so that's going to be a negative. I mean, the UK shows will probably be really good, but they were good last year, and they didn't really build much, after that.
Obviously, we've heard Michael Bennett, Maria Kanellis are making their way to TNA. That's something, I guess. Is there anything else you've heard of? Any other names popping up? I don't know who else is out there.
No, I would think that they're, again, I would think they're going to try to make some moves, but it's, who's out there? It's a real tough deal, because the problem is that there are people out there, like some of the, but there, really there aren't many, and the ones that are, I don't see anyone running to TNA right now. I mean, like you could get the Mike Baileys and the people like that aren't under contract to one of the main groups. But do they do those guys want to go to TNA for a long-term deal right now when they perhaps could get picked up by NXT or Ring of Honor? I don't know. I mean, I guess if you have no full-time gig, TNA is something, and it's something to get you on TV. So there's for those kind of guys, it's there. But geez, between Lucha Underground and NXT and Ring of Honor, there's just not a lot out there. A lot of good talent out there that's not accounted for.
You also reported this past week that Mike Tenay's deal is up in just a couple of days. Do you think that this could be it for Mike Tenay, an original with TNA for 13 years at this point?
I think it's going to be it for him. I can't imagine it. I mean, talk about a guy who disappeared. There
was no role for him. I mean, once that secondary show got canned just a couple of weeks in, I mean, he's largely just been forgotten about.
Yeah, I thought when he wasn't at Bound for Glory that was pretty much the signal he wasn't being re-signed. Because I think a big part of him being re-signed last year was, you got to remember, January, everybody knew that Jeff Jarrett wanted him to do the Tokyo Dome show.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a part of it. And also they had that secondary show for him, which was another part of it. But, once the secondary show disappeared, they could have brought him to the main show. But the fact that they chose not to tells me that, he's just disappeared. So, yeah, I don't think he's going to be re-signed.
Well, he doesn't exactly have the knowledge base of the Pope, Dave. Just what a terrible decision. All right, on that note, let's say goodbye for this week, because we have more Pope and Josh to enjoy when these guys hit the air in a week and a bit. Dave, what's coming up in the Observer?
Year in review issue. So I've gone through this. I mean, when you go through, and I'm only partway through, but going through the research, it's really amazing the difference this year and last year when it comes to UFC.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when it comes to other stuff, there's, NXT is the other one. NXT, when you really look at a year ago, the idea that they were going to be doing a show that did 13,000 people in Brooklyn or 7,000 people in London, it didn't seem possible a year ago. And, I could see the 5,000 WrestleMania weekend, but that one I would have believed. But they've really come along, and then TNA, it really, they if you really think, in the sense that they had so much more something than they have now. A lot of the Ring of Honor went up this year greatly, but they're at a crossroads, because I don't know how many dates AJ Styles is going to be able to work for them this year, and a lot of their guys are looking for better money deals elsewhere, but right now they're stronger than they were a year ago. So there's some people up, and then Lucha Underground was kind of the big unknown, and I think it's a positive overall this year, just the fact that they're still alive, but they haven't figured out a way to make it, a financial success yet.
That is true. A lot of stuff launching next week, and we look forward to reading The Observer and then talking to you next week at this time, Dave.
Okay, have a great week.
Actually, an hour earlier next week.
Oh,
we're moving back up. So an hour earlier.
I'm glad you told me.
Yeah, well, okay, great. We'll reconfirm with you later in the week. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, cool.
Talk to you next week. Great. Dave Meltzer, you can find him at WrestlingObserver.com, of course. And yes, indeed, once again, we are moving back to 11 p.m. next Sunday night here on The Law.
And it's our best of show.
That's right.
Which is not just segments from the past year.
No.
It's a brand new show.
Yeah, where we're going to do all our awards on the show. Best of this, best of that, and then the week after will be our worst of show. One of the most fun of the year. And lots to talk about this year. Want to play Tight About Trivia? Want a t-shirt from barbershopwindow.com? Call now, because I'll be answering the phones. 1-855-591-6876. That's 1-855-591-6876. Keep in mind, it is the holidays. So if you haven't played before, this is a good time to get in. Phone lines are open now. 1-855-591-6876. Tight About Trivia after this.